it always shocks and surprises me when the music ends and we're both sitting here talking about movies. Welcome to Generation Movies, not Generation X, Y, or Z, Generation Movie. My name is J.W. Colwell. I'm joined, as always, by the amazingly talented, debonair, shockingly, terribly sexy, Rich Drees. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you there, buddy.
on a Wednesday night. Well, it's one of the worst lines in the entire movie. How are you? How is your week going?
Week's going.
What is going on?
Week's going pretty good so far. Got confirmation that I will be at New York Comic Con in a couple of weeks. So if you see me there, just feel free to stop me and say hi. I will try to at least say hi. But if I'm like running between two panels that I'm trying to cover, I might not have time to talk a lot, and I do apologize for that. Because at Comic-Con, I am a one-man band, and I'm trying to get, hit as many things as possible.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize. You're important. Move to the next thing. Don't apologize. Don't apologize. Be amazing.
I wish I had a staff of 10 people I could just scatter about the show and then just kind of sit back and let it all come in. But unfortunately,
Ken writes in, good evening, friends. Good evening, Ken. Good evening, friends.
Ken's here already. Good evening.
It's good. It's good when people are here early. I like that. I like that there's let's get into it.
Or else we started late. I don't know.
We did start like a couple minutes late, so I don't know. So it's me. I'm sorry. I was snarfing down some food in between two shows on a Wednesday night. But so we've had all kinds of movies during this 1982 run we're on, and tonight's movie, it's like, I don't want to say it's not, like, it's good. Like, it's not that it's not good. It's just that it has bone-jarring, soul-jarring changes in tone and atmosphere. I'm like I don't know that they make them like this anymore. So we're talking about The World According to GARP tonight. Robin Williams, one of his first starring roles. It's based on a John Irving novel. It's quirky and New England-ish, and all the it's funny, but it's a tragic comedy, and it's a dramedy. It's all of these things.
And I'm not sure it moves smoothly between them.
No,
at all.
It moves like the San Andreas Fault between them. Like things happen and then things literally crash into one another. And I think like we're going to talk about this movie tonight, but you and I are going to have to at some point rectify at the end in this hour. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel it's quality entertainment. And then I was looking at different, like when we get to the critic stuff, I'm so happy that there's a major critic that is in the same freaking boat as I am, where they just don't know. It's good. Yeah, it's a thumbs up, but I have no idea what the hell was going on.
It's a very qualified thumbs up, I would say.
It is. For me. Well, that'll give away a little bit of who it is.
Yeah, we'll get to that at some point.
Somebody used thumbs. But basically, we have to. You and I are going to have to rectify it. But let's start with where we always start. Please share the link. We're always looking for folks sharing the link. Get our things out there if you enjoy our show. Also, if you enjoy our show, a couple things that we always want everybody talking about, although I don't know where the hell they went to. I really don't know where they went to. Holy shnikey. Where did my stuff go? There it is. I'm sorry. Couldn't find it for a second. If you like the content, please subscribe. We have a YouTube channel that's the Indian Escape Network. A lot of good people on this network. A lot of smart guys and gals and guys and us. Yeah, there's all the smart people, and then there's us. But we have this YouTube channel that's really nice. You can subscribe there. You can also pay attention, and we have Facebook stuff going on. And this is going on all the time where I'm hearing rumors that we're going to have candles that are associated with our show. I picked out a scent. I think everybody's going to get exactly what scent we picked out. So we have to pick out scents for our candles that are going to be associated with the show, which I think is cool. That means you can like light up your house and be thinking of Rich and I, or also Cinemark, or wherever the hell you see movies.
No one wants to think about my smell.
I'm just saying it's a smell. I'm not saying it's your smell. I'm just saying you could think of us. Anyway, forget it. I was just trying to make a point.
I know,
but
I'm kidding.
yeah,
Actually, that sounds like a fun idea for everybody.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of good shows. You have Gabe on Tuesday nights. You have CJ Robles on Monday nights. You have Brandon, who continues to do these incredible shows, this IOU show, every Friday night with these incredibly talented people. I got to ask questions to a Scooby-Doo villain and a Batman villain last week. So pay attention to the network. A lot of good things going on. But we have a job to do. We're here to talk about the world according to GARP. Let's talk with production. We have had these in the past where there aren't major problems. Things kind of sail through. And the production comes down to finding key people in the right pieces for the jobs, right? This is one of those movies where that's the case. Basically, you have Robin Williams coming in off of a major role. They sit down and they get Judge Roy Hill, who's directed a lot of good movies.
I think we should take a step back, though, and just take a look at the novel for a moment.
Good. No, that's a great place to start. Yeah, absolutely.
This is John Irving's fourth novel, The World According to GARP. He was already pretty much considered, one of the rising stars in American literature at the moment through the 70s. This came out in 1978 and was an almost immediate bestseller. Just sold like gangbusters. So obviously Hollywood came sniffing. If you're not familiar with the name of John Irving, and sadly I think maybe he's kind of fallen out of the public consciousness a little bit. The guy is 80 years old now, hasn't really been working recently, but you may know the film Hotel New Hampshire. You may know the film Cider House Rules. You may know the film A Prayer for Owen Meany, which was turned into Simon Birch in 1998. His books have over time been looked at for adaptation, and I think those, two out of those three other films are pretty good. Hotel New Hampshire is really good. Cider House Rules is an undeniable classic. Simon Birch, it's a film.
I think the interesting thing here is that the film, there's a pedigree to adapting a John Irving novel, right? There's a pedigree associated with when you have John Irving writing that Cider House Rules immediately goes into the Oscar race when it comes out. Charlize Theron, Tobey Maguire, Michael Caine, right? And this movie is in the same vein, right? We're looking at when you get a John Irving novel and you're adapting. Oh, this one's adapted pretty quickly, right? We're talking 4 years between book, bestseller, movie, right? So it's kind of a quick adaptation, right? And I think that's one of the more interesting things about this movie is how fast it is, and they kind of just pick things right, like they pick people that kind of with an immediacy. And Robin Williams, I don't know. I think he's great in the role, but I also think it's the least Robin Williams role one of the least Robin Williams roles you could ever see, because he's struggling throughout the entire movie. Rich, I don't know if you feel this way, but he's struggling to push it down, just to push the Robin down, and
and you can see it peeking out around the edges at a couple of points. I know we had said we were talking about this right before we started. And I said the scene on the front lawn of the house where he's playing with his kids and they're playing, chivalrous knights. You can kind of see him being a little crazy there.
There's also when he gets angry at things in the movie. There's the brief from his stand-up. There's a brief kind of the rage puppet that kind of every once in a while when he would talk about hypocrisy or talk about whatever. There's a sequence in the movie where he's really angry with somebody, and you can see it there. talking about self-mutilation, and which we'll get to it, I promise, because it's part of the goddamn movie. It's just crazy. But
also, I would say when he first meets Helen, played by the wonderful not Glenn Close. Glenn
Mary
Close
Beth
plays his mom, Mary Beth Hurt as Helen. When they're two of the oldest looking high schoolers I ever seen, and I've watched a lot of Looking Back Cotter.
Yeah, the idea that somebody in a production team said, "Hey, Glenn Close, you're going to play Robin Williams' mom. How old are you in real life compared to Robin Williams?" "I'm 4 years older." "Okay, awesome."
Mm-hmm. But that's when he's meeting Helen and he's going up and down the steps and everything. If you watch like the energy of his feet, because sometimes his whole body is like out of the frame because the camera's focusing in on her. It feels very like Robin Williams trying not to be too wacky there. It just has that.
There's a lot of that though. Throughout the entire production of the movie. They're like the interesting things for me with this is the casting. I mean, they plug Glenn Close out of nowhere, right? She's an actress. She's working, off Broadway, doing different plays, moving around. But this movie is the movie where Glenn Close is introduced to two things, and we'll talk about more of them as we get into Legacy. But she's introduced to the silver screen. She's also introduced to a little friend named Oscar that's never come a calling.
Yeah.
So it's this weird. She's playing much older than she actually is, and in comparison to the person playing her son. And then the other casting that has to be talked about is John Lithgow, as he is absolutely incredible. There are two movies from the 80s that if you catch John Lithgow and you just happen upon them, and John Lithgow happens to be in them, and then all of a sudden John Lithgow is stealing whole chunks of the movie, it's this movie and Terms of Endearment, right? He, in Terms of Endearment, plays this really decent, nice person, right? What? Well,
I will always go back
he steals that movie wholeheartedly.
And his performance. I mean, I've said I've turned Mussolini into a verb to describe John Lithgow's performance in Buckaroo Banzai.
Well, that's what I mean, but it's still like he steals. Like if you give him a movie, if he's in a movie with you, be careful, be super careful because he can steal things. We got some more comments coming in. Brandon says, "What's up, JW and Rich? How are we doing, Brandon? I don't know if you have it on your show this week. Super excited though because last week's show was amazing." Ken writes, "I barely remember this movie. I did see it when it came out. I most remember how long it was. I think this is what Rich and I are talking about production-wise. It's not necessarily long. It's disjointed. The narrative is disjointed, so it seems long, but it's wonky.
Yeah, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, which isn't bad for a literary adaptation of a drama. I really don't think that's too long of a movie, especially for in the early 80s.
Yeah, Glenn Close, first theatrical movie. She did TV movies, right? Yeah, this is Glenn Close's first thing. And then Tim writes, "I don't remember this, no, now I have to watch it." Yeah, it's on HBO Max. If you want to watch it, if you have HBO Max, it's sitting there. It is a wonderful production. It's very authentic. There's never a moment during the production where you go, they're cutting corners. They find the right actors for all the roles. Like that's one thing about it. Like there's you even get a Hume Cronin, Jessica Tandy sighting. You get a Swoozie Kurtz sighting. You get an Amanda Plummer sighting.
So awesome. I just want to take a half second to acknowledge Hume Cronin is hilarious. Like the 12 seconds that he has on screen.
Well, and him and Jessica Tandy are both very funny. But it's really this weird, like the production is all in getting the script right. Steve Tessick, I think that's how you say it. Did the adaptation, and basically getting the right actors for the roles. Now, I would, maybe we come to a point in a 40-year-old movie where we look at it and we go, maybe Robin Williams isn't good for this. But I think the legacy portion of the show tonight will be Robin Williams getting other roles because of something like this, where he's definitely able to hold down the clown or hold it at bay and play real serious, because the movie's at times funny and then it's like coming of age and then at times deadly serious.
Yeah, this movie might not have been right for Robin Williams, but it definitely was. Robin Williams might not have been right for this movie, but this movie was definitely good for Robin Williams, or right for Robin Williams.
Yeah, because and that's the other thing, because he's holding his own with major talent, right, in front and both behind the camera and in front of the camera.
Oh yeah,
and he's just it's not effortless to hold everything back that he wants to do, but it is, he can shift gears, which is going to come into play as he progresses through his career. And one of the reasons why everybody loves him is on full display in this movie. And Tim, you say I don't remember this movie at all. I now have to watch it. I'd watch it. Like, that's the thing. I was talking to Rich before we started the show. It's worth the watch, and it's worth a rewatch but it is, there are jarring things where it's just like, kind of like, it's just a very jarring 80s movie where it's not, where it's, everything is kind of right into the way it normally is for an 80s movie, right?
Yeah.
So they go through the production, they do everything. Like, there's really, they get the right casting down, and it just seems like there's nothing about fights or anger or studio intervention about adapting this really quirky John Irving novel. Although I would imagine that, sometimes there's a couple stories here or there where John Irving's not always happy with adaptations of his films, right? He's gone out of his way to say the movies that are made from my books are not necessarily good adaptations of my books. Especially came into play for this and Cider House Rules, where he kind of was a little standoffish. Let's say standoffish. The idea that he's not the first author who didn't think that Hollywood was doing a good job with his books. Stephen King.
Well, that's because you're seeing somebody else mutilate your baby, basically.
Yeah. Well, and
the man doing the mutilation, air quotes, here, we said, Steve Tessick, this guy just won an Oscar like a couple of years earlier for Breaking Away, which is a fantastic film. And it's a coming of age story. That's a coming of age story as well. So I could see why somebody would say, he might be a good, fit for this material.
Well, and even the choice of director is a little bit. I'm not saying it's a bad choice for a director, because it's the idea of it's a big adaptation of an American book, but you're looking at Judge Roy Hill, and we're talking Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Slaughterhouse-Five, The Sting, The Great Waldo Pepper, Slapshot, A Little Romance, Little Drummer Girl, Funny Girl, and GARP. So he's an amazing director, right? Who's
Now, have you seen one of his earlier films, Peter Sellers' flick, The World of Henry Orient? I
have, and that's the other one I was going to discuss in a moment.
Yeah. I kind of wish he brought that vibe to what he was doing here.
Well, even Thoroughly Modern Millie, Thoroughly Modern Millie has a vibe where it's trying to get the quirk, and that's a lot of what the John Irving book is very much quirky, and it comes off as quirky, but in a narrative film, while good, that's the thing. The scenes are all jarring, but they're all well done, and they piece together, but they don't necessarily complete a narrative. It's a weird production.
If you watched all of those scenes as little short films, I think, narratively they all work kind of cohesively within themselves. But like you said, they don't join. It's uneven, and by the end, you're kind of like, well, what, huh? But we'll get to that.
Right, and one of the things that comes up in the production is they have this great credit sequence. They buy a Beatles song, they put a baby in front of a camera, and he's literally bouncing in the air, and it's supposed to represent Glenn Close bouncing him at the beach, and it's just this kid, and he's naked for 3 minutes, but it's a goofy kind of like, I have no control of my life kind of thing, where they're announcing it, and it's one of the coolest credit sequences, coupled with one of the cooler Beatles songs.
That song has a nice little bounce to it. Don't
do it too long. We'll get copyrighted. Don't do that.
I don't want to strike.
We don't want to get screwed by anything. But it has a nice bounce to it, and then the kids bounce in the frame, and then it kind of all wraps around towards the end. It's one of those things where the production design is really good. The people they got to write the screenplay, like there's no fighting over the screenplay. There's no fighting over the adaptation. Jonathan Irving isn't part of it. You know what I mean? Like Judge Roy Hill comes in and directs as if he's directing like a 70s movie. You know what I mean? But not with any they're like, the most that I can tell you is there's fun in those 70s movies. Yeah. Right? Not a lot of fun here.
No.
There's funny things.
But there were things that I watched this movie in college years ago, and I'm rewatching it. I'm like, wait, is this because this thing happens, which kind of happens around the end of the second act? This feels like a trope of like 70s drama movies almost. Kill off a kid.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Those of you who haven't seen it, yeah. Well, there.
We won't tell you which one.
Well, there's never like. What I will say is there's plenty of flavor text where characters say things and then all of a sudden something bad happens to the character and you're like, oh, that character had it coming. They brought it up in the script. You know what I mean? Like, where you're just like, what the fuck just happened? And that's one of the things. The production, top notch. A great cast. They pluck Glenn Close out of obscurity. They give her this role. She bowls things over with it because it's a dominant performance. Like there's never a moment where she's on screen where it's not dominant. So when it hits, it opens the summer of '82. When it hits, we discover that basically what has happened is that it's the critics love it. Like there's a demarcation, right? Right now, Rotten Tomatoes score is 70%, and basically it's 20 critics right now on Rotten Tomatoes. So you're looking at it. I'm sorry, I got to change our thing. I'm missing brand stuff. Brand stuff, Rich. How could I? I'm terrible. Actually, we're doing box office first. I'm sorry. Critical is later. I'm losing my mind. Sorry. Just brain freeze tonight. So it opens on July 23rd, 1982. It has a tough movie opening against it that we're going to discuss later this year. It opens against The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which is it's a really hard movie to open against if you're the world according to GARP.
Yeah. Well, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, based on a popular Broadway musical, starring one of the most famous male movie stars of the time, and acting opposite one of the most popular, not just country singers, but just plain, popular music singers of the time, too.
And actresses at the time, because she's in a bunch of stuff in the early '80s, including 9 to 5. So it opens against that, and the box office isn't great, right? It's, it opens at 2.9 million. It has 357 theaters. It never gets above 560 theaters, and it plays about 11 weeks. Now, its full domestic gross is $30 million, which in today's standards would be a $94 million film.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking Bullet Train. Like we're talking about today's gross. We're talking Bullet Train gross for this movie, which to me that's bonkers too. But it grosses $30 million.
$30 million against a $17 million budget, though, is not good.
No.
Once you factor in advertising and the studio and theater split, studio lost money here.
Yeah,
I mean, we got the film, which is always good, but
when I think they're also like, I think one of the things, $30 million is not bad for an adaptation in dead summer. Like I look at that and I go, how is this movie not opening in the fall? Like how is this movie not, like it's going to end up getting Oscar love, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It gets the Oscar love, right? It gets critical reception. It gets all these things, but you drop like some of these decisions during the summer '82, Rich, are batshit insane.
This is definitely a theme that has kind of developed over the weeks and now months that we've been doing this. Yes.
Why are you opening this against the best little whorehouse in Texas? Like why are you opening this against Zapped? Against Zapped. Zapped is the other movie that opened that weekend, by the way, which is a terrible Scott Baio teen comedy.
We will not be covering Zapped.
No, we won't be. We will be covering Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, though. Then this movie opens the 23rd. The 28th, the movie we talked about that would go on to dominate the rest of the summer after E.T. and everything else came out. Officer and a Gentleman opens on July 28th. So there's no air for anything serious after July 28th. Like the room gets sucked out of it. So the box office here is a little mediocre, especially for the town involved. But at this point, what I would say about the box office is Robin Williams isn't Robin Williams yet. He's not the butterfly he will become, the dominant box office figure that he will spark, where he can open a movie that's basically about a suicide and pretty pictures and gross $75 million on his head. Like he's not that Robin Williams yet. But that movie comes from this movie. The idea that you get a Robin Williams, What Dreams May Come, or something where he's playing serious 1 hour photo, or Insomnia, or any of these, is because he shows not only can he do comedic, but he can do serious. Because this movie is at times dreadfully serious, painfully serious.
Oh goodness, yes. Yeah, I mean, up until then, he had only done in film. He had like this teeny little cameo thing in a very bad sketch film from 1977 called "Can I Do It Till I Need Glasses?" And around that time, though, he was doing a lot of like little bits of TV work here and there. If you ever have chance to see the 3 or 4 episodes from the unfortunately short-lived Richard Pryor show, which is absolute genius. It's some of the best sketch comedy of the era that wasn't Saturday Night Live. Robin Williams could be seen like lurking around in the background of crowd scenes and stuff, and occasionally he has a line. But I mean, the only thing he did before GARP, really, in terms of actual roles, substantive roles in film, was Popeye. And before that, he'd been Mork on Mork and Mindy,
and Happy Days.
Yeah, Happy Days, the 2 episodes that he did there.
He also that summer, and we don't hear enough about this. He also did Fairy Tale Theater that summer, with where he did The Frog Prince.
Oh, that's right.
And if you don't know anything about, Rich and I are old enough to have watched the show, but Fairy Tale Theater was this incredible Shelley Duvall venture on Showtime, where basically she did classic kids fairy tales with very big mainstream actors at the time. Whatever the streaming equivalent would be whatever Ryan Murphy's doing on American Horror Stories, where he's just throwing everybody out there. But basically, that's one of the only other things he's done, except Mork and Mindy. And he'll do other movies. He'll come into his own, but it's right up until this point, it's just Popeye and GARP.
Yeah.
And,
so this is really his first dramatic role.
Right. And actually his first role where everybody goes batshit insane won't happen for another 2 years, right? It won't happen till 84, it won't happen till Moscow on the Hudson, right? Where he shows up, he's playing a Russian immigrant. He's both funny and brilliant and dramatic, and it's a great movie. But it's one of those things where the box office here, while we look at it and go $17 million budget, box office 30 million, I think Warner Brothers had to be happy with it though, right? Because he starts getting more gigs, which is a big component of doing whatever. Yes, Ken, we just said that. Ron Williams was still Mork when this movie came out. That's absolutely true. I think Mork and Mindy had just been canceled, actually. Or it just ended its run when he started jumping to whatever. But 30 million is not bad for this movie. Also, 30 million is not bad for where it opened in the summer. Dead July against Best Little House in Texas. And a week later, fucking Officer and a Gentleman, which again, I still can't believe how much money that movie made. Like that movie.
Mork and Mindy just ended like a month and a half earlier in May.
Yeah. But that means he's filming GARP. He's doing whatever. So the box office isn't as good as it could be, but it is indicative of what we will come to expect as like maybe an overperformer. I don't know that anybody sat down at Warner Brothers and said, we have a John Irving novel that's going to make bank at theaters this summer.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is an era when they were still doing, bestseller novels and adapting them to the big screen. Obviously, okay, Gone with the Wind is, 40 years in Hollywood's rearview mirror by this point.
Fair.
But you still had people going, oh, Godfather, huge adaptation, huge money there. Jaws are the two that kind of pop out in my mind, right, for that era of like the mid 70s, we're starting in the box office or the, blockbuster era of filmmaking. And I think some people were still chasing the high of, holy crap, Jaws made a lot of money. Holy crap.
Where can we find books? People are reading books again. Where can we find them? But the box office isn't really indicative of the film's main appeal. I think the film's main appeal comes with regards to critical response. Critical response it's astounding. So we were talking earlier on the show, and I said there was a major film critic who said, I don't get it. I think it's a good movie, but I don't get what was, and like I watched the entire episode. You can watch it on YouTube, the entire episode of Sneak Previews with this movie. And Gene Siskel loves the movie, gives it 4 stars, thumbs up. Roger Ebert says, I'm giving it 3. I like it. I don't know what it was trying to do. I just find it to be a disjointed mess. And I rewatched, and then I watched the review, and I'm like, there are times when I'm so happy that I'm right in line with Roger Ebert. Like there are other times when I'm not happy. I'm right in line with Roger Ebert. But in this particular case, I felt great sitting there reading him going, I don't fucking get it. I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. But, entertained. He used this phrase, entertained but unmoved.
I would agree with that. I definitely would.
It is entertaining, yeah.
There's some fun parts in this movie, and there's and we're gonna get to a few of them. I know I want to spend at least a minute or two talking more about Lithgow's role, but I think
oh my God,
what I want to say is over in Legacy.
Yes, absolutely. We'll definitely delve into that. I couldn't agree more. I was trying to find. We'll talk about that too, but I it's one of the first times you see that kind of representation that is very much a big part of our world right now. In this movie, that is both admirable, and also the way it's handled is amazingly beautiful. Actually, like it's absolutely. There's never a moment where where the Lithgow characters played for laughs or played as something, it's a very beautiful kind of interpretation of a transgender character that I don't think you've ever seen in the 80s, to be honest. Like I was trying to come up with different things. There's really not a lot.
I mean, the character of Roberta is just accepted automatically by everybody around her. And that's what I think is incredibly, moving, inspiring, and makes this movie stand out in a field by itself versus everything. I mean,
especially in the 80s. This movie's 40 years old.
I mean,
it's not like something that came out last week on Hulu.
But I mean, a couple of years later in Bachelor Party, you have some, transphobic jokes. Unfortunately.
That's putting it mildly. That's putting it mildly. I mean, no disservice. Like, I think the critical response to this movie is it's a real interesting time capsule. But the thing about it is, I don't know that you can find any other movie that treats that type of character in this respectful fashion for years.
I would say on television, you had Billy Crystal's character of Jody on Soap, and that was in 1977. That was a gay man who was looking to have a sex change operation. And that character, though, that's how that character, started off on the series. They kind of backed away from the sex change aspect of it. And then because of a lot of pressure from the network and stuff like that, and then Jody, wound up having sex with a woman who got pregnant, and, because they were both drunk or something. And, so they kept trying to back away from the core concept of the character, which, I mean, you look at it now and go, ugh, it's unfortunate. I mean, I can also look at it and go, I understand why they were kind of forced to do that by the network and by pressure, if you want to keep the show on the air, and they still made some good points about, representation for people. And I like that.
But there's not even a moment in this movie, from a professional standpoint, where you look at it and you go, there's not even a moment where Robin Williams even thinks twice. He goes to his mother's house. His mother's house has become a haven for feminists and a haven for people who are looking for, have lost their way. And he meets the Lithgow character, and the Lithgow character is just so damn endearing. From the moment she gets on screen, and she's nice, and she talks about how sometimes her life is hard, and how, like, she explains, she becomes like basically Glenn Close's bodyguard kind of thing. And but like, she plays the damsel in distress in the part you talked about with the kids playing the knights. She's the damsel in distress. So you have this massive John Lithgow sitting under a tree in, a transgender character tied up like she's a princess. It's beautiful and endearing. And even throughout the film, there are several kisses to Robin Williams where it doesn't even like come across like where you go, Robin Williams is pulling back or anything. It's just like treated as a woman the entire film.
I think it, and I hate it because, I think it's probably stemming from just how things are today. But I honestly was waiting the whole film again for somebody to just say something derogatory. And outside of one guy just calling Roberta a dyke, which at least that means the character was seeing Roberta as a woman and not as a transgendered woman.
Right. Well, and there's two letters that she reads. There's two letters that she reads that involve the Raiders. One involves the Raiders. There's two letters she reads where, because Roberta is a former tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. And one of the letters she reads that, she's talking about death threats and hate mail that Glenn Close's character gets.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, I did forget.
I usually get a bunch of letters from a bunch of guys who want to see me gangbanged by the Oakland Raiders, but what are you going to do? And the way she plays it is just, but Lithgow he's warm, and he becomes a centerpiece for this family. Whenever they have a struggle, he's usually right in the middle of it, or even joyous times, right? The struggle, the joyous times. He's at the forefront in all of these moments in the scenes. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. It's like where you sit back and go, if we can get it right in 1982, we should, goddamn it, be able to get it right in other places.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing it out there. But the reviews are great. Views are fantastic. Siskel gives it 4 stars. Ebert gives it 3. Janet Maslin, who's another person we talk about a lot. The movie is a very fair rendering of Mr. Irving's novel with similar strengths and weaknesses. If the novel was picaresque and precious, so is the film, although the absence of the book's self-congratulatory streak helps the movie achieve a much lighter, more easygoing style, that's about as good as you're going to get from Janet Maslin. That's, she's saying you got the book right and you're incorporating style. That's pretty good.
Well,
Leonard Maltin also really loved it. Leonard Maltin also really loved it.
I just want to kind of break in here while we're talking about book versus movie. Have you read the book?
I've never read the book.
Okay, neither have I. So
I feel like it might be homework just because but I also feel like John Irving's novels, the one I have read, I read the Cider House Rules. They're very like, I want to say quirky, but quirky isn't the right word.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel they're super quirky with like characters that have like, tics, or they're all, and that's the one thing about the, like, when you're looking at, I believe I don't know, I haven't read the book, but I could see the Jenny Fields book character in the book being very cold, and Close she's strong but never cold. I could also see the Muldoon character being, Roberta Muldoon character in the book, maybe being quirky, like a transgender person that's quirky. And again, Lithgow is so fucking warm in the role and so human and so just, loving, and just, you want this person to be your best friend,
True.
But I could see the book being problematic, because I think John Irving books are usually, they're always quirky and just like, oh, look how quirky I am. Oh.
I just wanted to kind of make sure, we kind of at least set the boundary of where we're coming from in talking about the movie.
Yes, I'm coming from
like where Maslin and Ebert are all talking about. I've read the book because it was a huge bestseller at the time. Everybody read it.
I was 4 though.
Their feelings about the book to the movie, and their reviews talk about the intersection between those two things, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that.
When I think that's a circumstance of the time, right? I mean, best-selling books getting read before they were made into movies.
I know. Yeah, we were just taking it as a piece of cinema,
Right. Well, but I'm from the '80s where I wanted the book adaptations, baby. I'm going to see a movie. I want the book adaptation. I want Alan Dean Foster writing my book adaptation. So
I have so wanted to do a documentary on the history of the novelization, but somebody is working on one already. So I'm like,
are they really? That's too bad. That would be in our wheelhouse. That'd be really good for us. Alan Dean Foster, by the way, always had the best book adaptations. They were always kick ass. There was always like 1 or 2 little things that they didn't put in the movie, and you're like, why is that not in the movie?
Well, it might have been he added to the story versus
I know
that was in a script that got cut,
but
at some point.
You're right. There is a.
Anyways.
Well, no, but there is a very good point that that a lot of these critics are a little bit more well read than I am, at least, which is fine, I guess. I don't know. I've read some books I haven't, but this is one of the ones I haven't read. But the critical response, what I would say now, where you look at it now, right? 1, the transgender character stands out, especially in the time frame we're living in right now. 2, William stands out for playing everything so close to the vest, and Close stands out as you can't take the camera off her when she's on screen. So it's like it becomes this like she's effervescent as this character who again is not the nicest of characters. She's kind of like meh to like to people. Well, why'd you do that? Oh, I don't know. Do you want to sleep with the like? There's a prostitute sequence where Swoosie Kurtz is an amazing prostitute, and
can we rephrase that?
Well, Swoosie Kurtz plays an amazing prostitute. No.
Well, we don't know about the prostitute's abilities, whether they're amazing or not. We think her performance is amazing as the prostitute. Is that what we're trying to say?
Yeah. That's. Okay. I made a mistake. Yeah, it happens sometimes. It's 2 shows on a Wednesday, Rich. It happens. But there's this incredible moment where it's just, do you want to have like she's talking to Robin Williams like, do you want to have sex with her? And the answer is yes. But how do you say that to your mother? So he's like, yeah, I get, and like, and then she pulls out the money, and Susie Kurt's like, no, put the money away. Also, this is a little bit too sick for me. You need to go down to 8th Avenue for this. I'm good. But it's like I think the way the characters interact. My only problem as with a critical response now is that it is disjointed. So it's the highs are very high. The comedy is very high, and then it is a punch in the gut, and the punch in the guts come out of places that you just can't see coming at all. And I don't know that, like, in our time frame where everything is an A, B, C, D story, these are kind of A, F, H, W, and they're all over the place. And people might get angry if I say I recommend it to you. They might get angry with the idea that I wasn't expecting that to happen, and this is supposed to be a Robin Williams comedy. It's like, yeah, sure, I guess. But it's not a Robin Williams comedy. I'm telling you, it's not. But it's, Robin's his performance is really good. The direction's really good. It's just, for me, it's disjointed, incredibly disjointed. Like, just I couldn't get it off my soul how disjointed it is. And it's just,
yeah, it tonally it is all over the map, unfortunately. You have something weird and funny like, the airplane smashing into the house that they're looking at buying, and then Robin Williams is like, well, what are the odds of another airplane ever hitting this house? We're safe.
We're disaster proof.
Yeah.
We've done the disaster first.
That didn't turn out to be entirely true either.
Well, that's that car wreck. Jesus, I don't even want to discuss it because people are going to watch it. You should get punched in the face like I did, or like Rich did, or like anybody else that watched this movie did. You deserve to be punched in the face for going to watch it, or any of the other things that happen in the third act. The third act loses its collective mind, and I'm sure the book did too. But the third act just becomes a withering kind of like carnival of crazy, and just, but also like quirky. Everything's a quirky. All of the things that happen that are tragic are quirky, and they're like
tragedies. Wow.
Not everything, but the one is certainly particularly quirky, like really quirky, based on a sequence that happens in the movie earlier, and then it also lines that are given in the movie earlier that are just, there's a bear line where it's like, Ron Williams is dressed as a bear for Halloween with his kid dressed as a bear, baby bear, and it's a terrible line because you know what happens, and if you don't know what happens, you're not going to realize it's a terrible line. But after you've seen the movie and then you hear the line, you're like, oh my God, that's a terrible line. And so that's where it would end.
The last terrible thing that happens, I don't want to say what it is, but it is instigated by a character we've seen a little bit in the movie, not a whole lot.
I would say it's a lot. She's in every level of the movie.
Yes. Yeah.
She's in every level. Kid, teen, adult.
Not for a lot.
No.
So I find, even though we know where she was coming from in terms of her, I still don't think it's entirely, it doesn't feel incredibly motivated, even though we know that this person is part of, how do I say it? Part of a group that Robin Williams' character inadvertently offended, or maybe
Well, it's not.
offended.
Yeah, it's not inadvertent. He writes a book. He writes a book telling them they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And the Ellen James Society is what Rich is talking about and alluding to. I think we can say it. It doesn't ruin anything. Nobody knows out of the context. The idea that character becomes an Ellen James person is weird to me because the entire movie she's usually playing the peeping Tom. So it's a weird juxtaposition. Also, she's a family friend that calls him out on the funeral sequence. It's just, it's odd. It's quirky and odd. I don't know.
There's a certain mirroring there of his book and her reaction, and his mother's book and men's reactions. So I sort of see that. I just don't think
don't know
quite
where
works.
it would end where it ends, and it kind of ends so that it can end with flying of some sort. Is the way it feels quirky for quirky's sake.
Well,
I agree.
how do we get back to this flying line? I know
how we do it.
Yeah,
I wonder if it is in the book. Now, legacy franchise viability. I don't like there's a lot of 80s, 70s, 80s books getting rebooted. I haven't heard anything about a GARP reboot. I haven't heard anything because I could easily see this being a TV show, a high-profile TV show with people trying to recreate the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, back in about let's see, it was back in 2015. Irving said that HBO and Warner Brothers had kind of approached him to redo World According to GARP, but as a mini series. And
well, that time has passed.
About a year and a half later, he said, "Yep, I wrote a 5-part series based on the novel, and we ain't heard nothing since." So I'm assuming, especially with all the crap that Warner Brothers
that got Zaslaved.
Yeah, it's been. Although no project is ever truly dead. I wouldn't be surprised if Zaslav is looking to just who's looking just to continually just capitalize on pre-existing IP, might say, well, let's take another.
Sell it to Amazon.
Yeah,
that man is infuriating. But
man's a disaster.
It's terrifying. The legacy things that come off for me, obviously, the first one you have to talk about is Glenn Close, right? She comes from a TV movie role plays. She jumps into this. She gets nominated for an Academy Award in her first role, Best Supporting Actress. She becomes the Glenn Close we know and the Glenn Close we love, right? But this is like, she comes out of nowhere, Rich. Out of nowhere. It's her film debut. So she gets out of nowhere, and she's really good. And it's, I have the hiccups. I'm sorry. I don't know where it came from. It just appeared. And I have nothing to drink because I'm already 2 shows in. Okay, so she comes out of nowhere, right? And that legacy is amazing.
And this is like her first of 8 Academy Award nominations between 1982 and 2020, when she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in Hillbilly Elegy. I don't want to call her the Susan Lucci of the Academy Awards, but she's been nominated for incredible work: Big Chill, The Natural, Fatal Attraction, Dangerous Liaisons, Albert Nobbs, and The Wife are the other ones. And
she should have won for Dangerous Liaisons. To be honest and fair, like, there are many roles that she should have won for. And it's just, but this role, it wouldn't have been a bad like, it wouldn't have been a bad choice for her to win here. Like this seems to be, it wouldn't have been in the Academy way of things, where it's like, where you look up and it's like, oh well, she's an ingenue. She gets nominated for an Academy Award right out of the bat. She wins it. Like if she gets nominated for this 20 years later, all of a sudden she's a winner. She's a winner on Oscar night.
Yeah, but she lost to crumbs from Tootsie.
It's Jessica Lange.
Jessica Lange, yeah.
So,
really was at the beginning of her career as well.
Well, and Jessica Lange wins the award because she's nominated in 2 films that year. She's nominated for Frances and playing Frances Farmer, and also for Tootsie. So
it seems crazy to me that didn't split the vote on her. Giving a pathway.
Oh yeah, but every time a Best Actress and Supporting Actress and Actress nominees, they usually win the Supporting Actor award. That's a pretty.
Oh yeah,
pretty solid, but it's one of those things where I could easily see her beating Jessica Lange. Jessica Lange's performance in Tootsie is really good, and we'll talk about that later in the year as well. But this performance is special. It's amazing. And then there has to be something said about Robin Williams being able to shift gears from dramatic to comedic to dramatic to comedic, even within the same film, because he's doing that here, right? He's toned down here, but you get the feeling that he can let loose at any point. You also get the feeling that he's holding in check, because it really is his first chance at not playing Mork, right? And not playing Popeye, and just trying to get out there. And Lithgow has to be talked about. The legacy of this movie is in its performances that would later create 3 of the biggest stars and best actors we've ever seen in any way, shape, or form, which is an incredible legacy. I don't even know that you have a legacy with adapting John Irving novels, or them being notoriously difficult and being adapted. The Cider House Rules took forever to get placed after this movie. But that's the legacy. The legacy is all in finding these people that come out of the woodwork to play these roles that are incredibly quirky, but also romantically human, right?
Yeah.
They're
Ken has a nice comment here too. If you want to bring up that last one. He says, for reading Ken here, for me, the movie that found Robin Williams niche for what he does as a big screen actor is Good Morning Vietnam. And from there, he only went up. And Good Morning Vietnam is only 5 years away from this. That was 1987. And then another 2 years, Dead Poets Society in 89.
Right. What I would say to Ken, though, is does he even get the shot at Good Morning Vietnam without this on his resume?
Exactly.
If you look at it, like his movies from 82 on, right? If you look at Robin Williams and his work from 82 on, what you see is a progression where he has comedy to do, but they're in movies that are a lot of the time serious, or have serious, like some are straight comedies, but a lot of them are like, Survivors is a comedy that he did with Walter Matthau that wasn't really great. He does Moscow on the Hudson, which is really good. He does The Best Times, which is okay, but has started to find a niche, which is it's a little bit of a cult film because it's him and Kurt Russell. So it's he does Club Paradise, which is abysmal.
Yeah, less said the better.
He does some pieces or parts of Dear America, Letters Home from Vietnam, which leads into the Good Morning Vietnam role. Right, so he's working towards building towards being taken seriously as an actor, and you can say he found his niche there, but I would argue the niche occurs much earlier, because if he doesn't have the niche earlier, Ken, he doesn't necessarily get Good Morning Vietnam. It goes to whatever functional clone of Bradley Cooper there was in 1987.
That seems fair.
But here's the other legacy that I would say. It is indubitably watchable, right? It is, you can watch the movie and be mesmerized by pieces of it, and then be graphically repelled by pieces of it, and then at the end you go, I don't know what just happened, but it seemed pretty good. Like, that's an incredible legacy to have, to be able to like pull off both drama and comedy in equal sorts, and have all these things talking about a movie. We're still, not talking about it as much, but we're definitely still talking about the world according to GARP.
Yeah. My only big complaint is, Robin Williams and, half the cast is asked to basically play the characters from the age of 16 to the age of 40 or whatever. Whatever they are by the time this movie ends.
It's weird.
It's a weird
choice. They don't even try. I think it's really funny that we have a show on television right now where we're aging characters, and we're going to completely get rid of actors that are doing a good job, specifically because they're getting too old. They're too young for the act they're about to do. I think it's a crazy sentiment that in the 80s we just tried shit where we'll just have them play 16 through 40. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Let's do it.
Like I said, it's like some of the worst teenage casting since Welcome Back.
The outfit he's wearing is both incredibly non-teenager and worse. It's like he wears an outfit like he's training for wrestling, and he's like running around in like an outfit. It's got stirrups. It doesn't look great, and she looks like she's reading, like a fucking romance novel on the steps instead of working on homework, which is just whatever. At that point, they could have said, "Oh, we're doing like a fever dream kind of movie, where we're bouncing through." You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it is. It has a very, real life is quirky, so this movie's life is quirky feel to it. That's not necessarily bad, but not necessarily great either.
No.
So can't win them all, Rich. Can't win them all.
Nope.
But we do have something we can win for next week.
I was gonna say, even with all of its problems, it's still very much an impactful,
solid movie,
foundational movie for a lot of things to come.
And the transgender stuff is literally 40 years ahead of its time. There's no like the Muldoon character in this movie, the Roberta Muldoon character, played by John Lithgow, is 40 years ahead of its time. It's conversations we're having now. It's like, and there's an amazing quality to the movie where it never delves into treating that character
as a joke,
or as a side joke or a side puncher. Just it's really kind of again, I think it's probably for me the close performance and that are the two best features of the film. Because the close performance is her force of nature, and like what we will see later in her career, which is kind of super cool to see, like her first time out of the chute. Like, this is what I'm capable of on all fronts. And if you put me in a movie, there's a very good chance I will dominate it, or I will get nominated for an Academy Award.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun. But the Lithgow character is why I would return. He's just so nonchalant. She's just played to perfection. Even talking about her romances. Oh, the guy I'm going to date he's a romantic, and he says I make him feel less masculine. Like it's just delivered in a completely real way.
Yeah.
I wish we could get it. I wish we could get it moderately right in society. So that's
more
just
people need to see this movie for that.
Yes. The idea that you can be friends with somebody that may have been a tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, but is now feels they are a woman. Yeah, grow the fuck up and suck it up. But speaking of growing things up, we're going to grow some things up next week. That's a great segue. You got to love my segues. Sometimes my segues are abysmal. And, well, you don't have to. But anyway, you're smart. You're smart. You don't have to. But the audience can try to like them. This is what we got for next week.
Yes.
It is The Secret of Nim. It is Don Bluth, renegade, rogue animator, breaking free of his Disney shackles and making one of the darkest kids movies ever made.
Mm-hmm. And the anniversary of him walking out of Disney with 11 other animators was just last week. So this feels
we're right on points with what we're trying to do. So Secret of Nim is next week. It is a phenomenal film. It is one of the darker 80s kids films, though, as well. We were talking about some darker 80s kids films, but this is one of them where it's pretty bleak. Not going to lie. We're going to get into it, but also we're going to get into Don Bluth and what he brought to the table and what he took away from Disney in many ways. And Rich and I will discuss this. Crippled Disney for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Put a big crimp in Disney's fund stocking for about 10 years. And we'll talk about that next week. Rich, where can people find you, Rich?
Okay. All of my movie writing is at FILMBUFFonline.com. You can also find there a link to all the episodes of the Big Picture podcast, the podcast that I do with my very good friend Natasha Bogutsky.
Very fun.
Our most recent episode just dropped. It is on Clerks 3. One of us liked it more than the other. We'll leave it at that.
They're also fighting like cats and dogs about Confess Fletch, which is great. They're fighting like cats and dogs online about whether or not Confess Fletch is for anybody other than Rich and I. And I would argue it probably isn't, but that's okay.
And the episode before the current episode of the podcast, we actually was our back to school episode. So we did talk about Robin Williams' Dead Poet Society. So if you're intrigued about the more dramatic, discussing the more dramatic side of Robin Williams, maybe check that out.
Doesn't mean John Wayne in that.
Also, I can be found on Twitter at FilmBuffRich.
I am, let's see, we have Loud and Nerdy, the group. We have Loud and Nerdy, the page. We have the Florida Movie Guy. We also have JW, the Movie Guy, on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere. Ken asked a question before we go. How did the underrated movies poll? So we had an underrated movies poll tonight on Loud and Nerdy. Ken, you won. You picked the others, and the others won the entire poll tonight. Poll, whatever. But you won tonight. Congratulations. Ken, get more involved in the polls. And we're gonna have some polls coming up for us. There's a good kind of like thing. We do some polls. We're gonna have coming up. Don't be shocked, Ken. I told you, if you put the polls on the group on the page when you get the polls, people will vote for your stuff, Ken. They liked some of your things. We talked about a lot of them tonight on Loud and Nerdy, so you should check that out as well. Where you can find me on my other Wednesday night gig. But we got Secret of Nim coming up next week. We have some polls coming up that'll be towards the end of the year. And actually a big thing that came out today was about what we're going to talk about. There's a lot of Bond talk today on Variety because they interviewed Broccoli and they interviewed Walton and, about the idea that they went in with a 10-year commitment. And so we're going to talk about Bond movies coming into the next year, but we're going to need some help on figuring out what movies we're going to talk about. So
as I was saying to somebody recently, they're never going to sign like a really big famous name to James Bond. And if you come at me saying, "Oh, I heard a rumor that so-and-so is going to be signed," I will probably have to gently remind you that I needed to tell you who Daniel Craig was when he got signed. And that's how this works.
Yeah, all the big names are not going to sign because nobody's going to sign. The article says 10 to 12 year commitment.
Yeah,
nobody
Idris Elba is a fantastic actor. He himself has said, "Dudes, I'm like 50. I'm not doing this for 10 years.
Well, and that's the other thing. There's two prongs to the 10 to 12-year problem. One, you have to come into the meeting with whatever young actor you think you're getting and come up with a concept of what you're going to do after Daniel Craig tied together 5 pretty good movies. Actually, 3 really good movies and 2 okay movies. And you're going to have to come up with what you're going to do to fix the living in Daniel Craig's shadow problem because we still haven't, as film critics and people who watch movies, we still haven't come to the conclusion on what Daniel Craig's, what it's gonna fall into with Bond history.
Until we see the next.
Right, we're probably a year or 2 away when they'll pick a new Bond. Right, and just to get a yardstick and figure out, because I don't think they're gonna do dedicated movie across 5 arcs, right? One villain and a central plot and all that. I don't think they're going to do that again. I think we're going to go back to a world where we have Moonraker and Octopussy, or Tomorrow Never Dies and Goldeneye. I don't think we're going to have the way it's been with Craig, because I don't think anybody should want to try to copy him. Get away from it as far away as possible.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Ken says Gerard Butler. Too old, Ken. Way too old. Way too old.
He'll make the latter Roger Moore films look like a spring chicken.
Ken, I'll give you one so Rich can roll his eyes at me. I said Cavill only because I would like Cavill to be part of a franchise that actually cares about Cavill for 2 seconds. For 2 seconds, and he gets a shot to play a character where the movies are at least going to be competently written, as opposed to playing a character where he's played for the last 10 years, where he's been given the biggest pile of crap in the history of in whatever. I want Cavill to have a moment where he doesn't have to worry about that he's in an inferior Bond movie. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen because they're too important. But 3 to 12-year deal. That's forever for actors. That's a long time. And Daniel Craig hasn't helped with the way he's reacted after the franchise ending, going, "Oh, I'm free. Thank God, I'm free." It hasn't helped selling it to a bunch of young kids. Hey, you should go 10 to 12 years of your life playing an icon that you can never, ever possibly achieve. Also, people are assholes most of the time with my movies and how the character is treated. Good luck.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. I as far as the Bond question is, I'm like, we'll find out when we find out. It's just in the back of my mind right now. I think there's a Bond continuation novel coming out soon. I'll read that. That'll hold me over for a while. In the meantime, we've got one of the most amazing Star Wars series that's just started today, Andor, which really kind of is like Bond in space, if you think about it a little bit.
A little bit.
We've got House of the Dragon, which is fantastic. We've got The Rings of Power, which I am really enjoying. We've got a new Quantum Leap series, which the first episode
it was really good. And we've got a new show on Hulu called Reboot that everybody should be watching. It's not a reboot of Reboot, which is one of the great kid shows from the 90s, but it is a really good show by the guy who did Modern Family and has a really great cast, including Michael Keegan-Key and Johnny Knoxville and a couple other people. Really good.
I've heard good reviews, so I need to check that out myself.
But join us next week. Remember, please pay attention to the Indie Escape Network. We got a lot of good things going on. Brandon's got his big show on. I don't know who he has on this week on IOU, but whoever's on the show, you should definitely pay attention to watch because he has great people on, and they come up with really, again, I talked to a guy last week. There was a guy last week that he had on that I got to ask a question to. What is it like to be a Bond villain or a Scooby-Doo villain and a Batman villain voice-wise? Because who the hell gets to do that? Not everybody gets to do that. But join us next week. We'll see everybody next week for Secret and Him. Thanks for joining us tonight. Everybody have a great day.